Today's video is brought to you by PrizePicks.com, the kings of daily fantasy sports. All right, we'll get right back to the phone calls here in just a second. We're going to talk about one of these games here coming up this weekend. What should we start with? Well, let's start with LSU and let's start with Bama at LSU. Let me find it. What the hell is it? All right, here we go. All right, Alabama on the road at LSU this Saturday, 7:30, ABC primetime game. Alabama, of course, 6-2. LSU 6-2. Alabama, though, 2 losses in conference. LSU just the 1. This is a huge game. A home night game at LSU, sort of Kalen DeBoer's introduction to this rivalry here in the SEC. Now, he's been through this year at Alabama on the road at Tennessee, right? Didn't work out. They lost that one. Gets a chance kind of to redeem himself here. But this is an elimination game here. No matter how you look at it, this is an elimination game in my mind for everything. I don't think the loser of this game is making the SEC championship game. And I don't think the loser of this game, which would be 3 losses, is making the college football playoff with 3 losses. Just the way things are setting up in the other conferences, it looks extremely possible, like Notre Dame is getting in. That takes away one at-large spot from someone else. It looks like the ACC is probably going to get 2 teams in. There was some talk or debate whether they would get 1 or 2. Looks like to me probably 2. The Big 12 may only end up getting 1 team in, although it's possible they get 2. If Iowa State were to go undefeated, for example, and then lose the Big 12 title game, then obviously the winner of the Big 12 title game would get in, automatic berth and a bye. And Iowa State may end up getting in, too, at what would be 12-1. So there's just less spots available for at-large, it looks like, and there's a bunch of 2-loss teams as it is. So it feels like this is an elimination game here for both teams. And when I look at this game here, and I've gone back and forth on this all week because there's certain things that make me lean Bama in this one, and there's certain things that make me lean LSU in this one. Alabama's a 2.5-point road favorite in Death Valley. Make sure you check out PrizePicks.com. It's a great way to add some excitement to your college football Saturday. They're the kings of daily fantasy sports. They've got all the different sports available. Of course, we're talking college football here. But you just pick any 2 players and then choose more or less on their stat line, and you can win up to 100 times your money. There's a convenient search bar here. You can search for teams or players. We're, of course, talking about LSU and Bama in today's video, so you got LSU here. Now, if you think Garrett Nussmeier would have to have a good game here, right? If you think LSU is going to win. LSU can't run the ball, and there's people that still think the secondary might be the weakness for Alabama, so you can pick more than 349.5 passing yards for Nussmeier, more than 1.5 touchdown passes for Nussmeier, more or less than 291.5 pass plus rush touchdowns. I'm going to go with more than 249.5 pass yards. Speaking of LSU and Bama, we can go up here and we can search for Bama. And we can go Milroe. Will he run for a touchdown? I have a feeling that he probably will. More than half of a rushing or receiving touchdown. Yes, I think he will have a rushing touchdown in this game. We'll go with more. You can make any $5 play over here on Prize Picks. And whether you win or lose, they're going to give you $50 for free. Make sure you use the promo code Uncle Luke, all uppercase letters without any spaces. Check out the description box down below, prizepicks.com. We'll start with LSU and the obvious, which is the home field advantage and the difficulty for Bama in this case in having to play on the road at night in one of the most intimidating environments, not just in the SEC, but in all of college football. LSU can be a very, very difficult place to play. And LSU is talented, and they've looked really good at times this year. Nussmeier has played pretty good for the most part. The defense for LSU has taken a massive step forward this season versus what we saw last year. Maybe you want to argue they're not at an elite level like we've seen some LSU defenses play at in the past, particularly in the secondary where it seems like they used to put 4 players a year into the NFL. But if you watched LSU last year, it was one of the worst LSU defenses we'd ever seen. It's a huge step forward from that. Offensively, they don't run the ball great, but they've got, per normal, a couple of NFL wide receivers, and Nussmeier's done a good job at quarterback this year for the most part. The key here is going to be to keep him on his feet, to keep the Alabama front four, front seven off of him. It was thought that the weakness when it came to Alabama's defense might be the secondary this season, although no one really has been able to take advantage of that up to this point. We thought maybe Tennessee would, but even Tennessee really didn't throw the ball that well against Bama. That was a low-scoring game, and Tennessee really won that thing on the ground. So, I think LSU is really good. It's at home. It's going to be tough for Kalen DeBoer to go in there. But we're talking about Brian Kelly here, and this is where I start to lean Alabama, because I've seen Brian Kelly for 15 years now play in big games, and it's a struggle to try to come up with any that he's won. He did beat Alabama his first year at LSU 2 years ago, so the last time they played at LSU. He did beat Saban and Bama back in, what was that, 22, I guess, and LSU went on in Brian Kelly's first year to win the SEC West before losing to Georgia in the SEC championship game. But what's bad is that might be his biggest win ever. He had a string of big-time postseason losses at Notre Dame. He's lost the only SEC championship game he's made it to since being in the SEC. And this isn't a dump on Brian Kelly thing. I do think he's one of the best 10 coaches in football, but his record in big games is not great. Kalen DeBoer, much shorter sample size here, a couple of years at Washington, and now we have this year at Alabama. Won a big game earlier in the season at home against Georgia. Big lead at the half. Let Georgia come all the way back, take a lead late in the game. Bama then scores. Huge win for Kalen DeBoer. Definitely his biggest win at Alabama. You go back to Washington, of course, beat Oregon twice last year, won the Pac-12, won a playoff game, came up a little short in the national title game against Michigan. So he's played in and won some big games, Kalen DeBoer has. Don't know that he's seen an environment like he's going to see Saturday night. Tennessee, tough too. Jalen Milroe and Alabama in general, really very inconsistent this year. There's been some games where you watch Jalen Milroe and that Alabama offense, and they look almost unstoppable. The first half against Georgia, on the road at Wisconsin, 2 weeks ago against Missouri. But then there's other times you watch Alabama, South Florida, the second half against Georgia, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, where you almost don't recognize what you're seeing. It looks like imposters wearing Alabama uniforms. It's that different from what we're used to seeing. So you've got almost as many examples of Alabama playing poorly this season as you do of them playing well. In fact, you might have more examples of them playing poorly than playing well. Maybe it's a good sign that in the most recent game they played really well, right? The Missouri game, I thought, was probably the best complete game Alabama has played all season. And I'm not just talking about the final score, which is 34-0. I thought they played really good on offense. They played really good on defense. Milroe, I thought, played pretty good. They ran the ball great. This is a hard game for me to pick here. I'm going to go with the home team, LSU. They're favored by 2.5. I'm not betting $1 on this game. I really don't. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I've seen Alabama win these games year after year after year after year. These kind of games that you feel like must-win games, and it seems like those are the games where Bama really shows up. The Georgia game early in the year, it wasn't a must-win game in terms of, you got to win that game or else that's it. The season is over. But it was Kalen DeBoer's first huge game at Alabama, and Alabama showed up ready to go. I mean, that first half was something to see from Alabama. And Brian Kelly, poor coaching decisions. The analytics thing with Brian Kelly really gets on my nerves. He gets down inside the 20-yard line early in games over and over and over again and goes for it and doesn't get it. I don't know if they keep track of, how many points teams have left on the field by going for it on fourth down in the red zone. instead of kicking a field goal. But LSU, if they do keep track of that, LSU's got to be at or near the top of the list. I've seen them do it multiple times in multiple games this year, early in games. You get down there to go for it, they don't get it instead of taking the 3 points. Hard to trust Brian Kelly. I trust Kalen DeBoer right now as a head coach more than I trust Brian Kelly. I don't know what version of Alabama we're going to get in this game. I think LSU has played at a more consistent level this year. Not that they've played. I think if both teams play the best that they can play, Alabama would win. I don't know that I can count on Alabama to do that in this situation on the road at night at LSU. So I'm taking LSU to win the game, but I won't be betting one single dollar on that one. How wrong am I? How wrong am I on that? That's a hard game for me to pick. To me, that's a hard game to pick. Who are y'all going with in that one? LSU or Bama? In the chat. That's a hard one for me. I think DeBoer is probably a better coach than Kelly, like I said. And I think if Alabama plays up to their potential, they'll win the game. But I don't know that I can trust Alabama to do that. This is probably one of those things where if the game was in Bama, I'd pick Bama. But it's in LSU, so I'm picking LSU. I don't know. I mean, I think top to bottom, I think Bama's probably a better team. But, again, they've been so inconsistent. And they played great against Missouri. And if you can promise me that that's the Alabama that shows up to play LSU and they can protect Mildew and he doesn't do anything stupid, I think Alabama can win the game by a couple of scores. But I just don't know that I can. I don't know what version of Alabama I'm going to get. And like I said, even though LSU might not have played any at an elite level this year, I think sort of the baseline that LSU has played at is a little bit higher than the baseline that Alabama has played at. If you tell me we're getting Alabama first half against Georgia or Alabama against Missouri or Alabama against Wisconsin, I'll take Bama. But what if we get Alabama second half versus Georgia or Alabama versus Vandy or Alabama versus South Carolina? Then LSU will win. So LSU's at home. I'm going with them. So I don't know how wrong that is, but I wouldn't bet $1 on it. That's going to be a great game, though. I can't wait to watch it. The streaming schedule this week is going to be a little screwy. Georgia plays at 3:30, but I am not going to be able to watch much of that game in real time. My daughter and my son both have homecoming dances to go to on Saturday. And so I have some running around that I have to do between like 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock to take care of some things with that. So the streaming schedule is going to be noon on YouTube. So if anybody wants to hang out and watch the noon games, I'll be live right here on YouTube. The noon games are what this week? Let's see. I think Miami and Georgia Tech, is that right? Let's pull it up. Purdue and Ohio State, that'll be a bloodbath. Ohio State's favored by 38 over Purdue. Holy shit. Miami at Georgia Tech. Some people think this game is going to be interesting, and it is a weird line. Miami minus 11. I think Miami blows them out. I don't. Georgia Tech, is Haynes King going to play or not? Don't really know. If he is, how close to 100% is he? I don't know. It seems like Miami's going to be able to score at will in this game. Florida and Texas. This game is less interesting now that we know that Napier's not getting fired, right? It was worth watching every Florida game over the last month of the season to see if that was going to be the game where they said, oh, that's it, firing Napier, in the locker room after the game or the Sunday after the game. Now we know he's not getting fired. Florida could go out and lose this game by 40. Napier's your coach next year. I think Texas wins 22.5 points. That is a lot for a conference game. That's a lot of points for a conference game. I don't know that I would lay 22.5. Minnesota and Rutgers, Syracuse, Boston College, West Virginia, and Cincinnati. Syracuse still at 6-2, 2 ACC losses. I don't know if they're mathematically eliminated from the ACC championship game, but they're not making it. It looks like SMU versus Miami in the ACC championship game right now. Both of those teams have 0 conference losses. Navy and South Florida. Navy's lost 2 games. They undefeated until they played Notre Dame, got blown out, and lost another one after that. That's it for the noon games. So we'll be live on right here on YouTube for the noon game. So if y'all want to hang out and watch those noon games, come on by the channel at noon. We got the 9 a.m. kickoff show, too, that we'll do. Good morning. You're on with Uncle Lou.